Fight fans, welcome to the PBC Podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Bouhairie and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome, everyone, to the PBC Podcast. I'm Kenneth Bouhairie.
And I'm Michael Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
Thanks, as always, for tuning in to yet another episode. This is episode 192, man. We've done so many.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. And many more to go. This week, unbeaten welterweight contender Cody Crowley will join us, as well as undefeated super welterweight Joey Spencer. Plus, Mike and I will preview Saturday's PBC tripleheader on Showtime, headlined by Subriel Matias and Jeremias Ponce battling for a world title. And on toe-to-toe this week, Mike and I will list our choices for the 5 best performances in PBC history. But let's bring in our first guest. On Saturday, March 25th, he takes on Jesus Ramos in a battle of rising unbeaten 154-pounders at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, live on Showtime Pay-Per-View, Joey Spencer. Joey, how has camp been ahead of your March 25th showdown versus Jesus Ramos?
Yeah, it's been great. Everything that we've been that we came in wanting to get done, we're right on schedule. Everything is going smooth, and it's very hard, and my mindset is great. And, you know, I said in another interview earlier this week, I always push myself to try to go to another level in training camp. So as far as that goes, it's more of the same in this training camp. But my mindset is very different for this one. I'm just very focused, and my mindset is in a very, very good place just because of the matchup and because of the stage that it's on. It's a dream come true. So it's given me that much more added fire in training.
That's awesome. Now, were you already in training when you got the word? I mean, has this been a normal full camp for you?
I've been training since my last fight. I actually started training the night of my last fight and have not taken a break since. So I've just been training. I've just been getting ready, and that's pretty standard for me. I knew that the next fight was going to be a big one. I actually we called Louis to Cubas 2 weeks after my last fight, and I asked for Jesus Ramos. So I knew that there was a potential for that fight to be made. I knew it was going to be big, whatever it was. And I've stayed in the gym. I've been sparring for the last, good 3-4 months or so. So I've just been really in the lab, getting better, working on my, conditioning, my boxing skills, everything for a long period of time. And then we started official camp about 10 weeks out and have been, working on a schedule and leading up to the fight. So that's what we've been doing.
You just alluded to this, that you actually asked for this fight, but could you elaborate at all on how this fight came about?
Yeah, so I was actually on my phone on the way home from my last fight, and I was like, you know what, who should I fight for my next one? I just started to think. I went and checked out the rankings for, the different sanctioning bodies, and I realized that Jesus Ramos was in the top 5 of the WBC, and either top 5 or top 10. And I looked up Jesus Ramos, and I actually realized that he had some words about me on another boxing channel. Nothing too bad or disrespectful, but he had just gotten asked a question about me. And to be fair, it was before I had stepped up. I think it was a year prior, or maybe it was right after his Hernandez fight. So he had just fought a pretty formidable guy, and I hadn't really stepped up in competition yet. And he said that he felt like he wanted to fight that would bring him close to the title, and that he thought that I'd be more of a step backward. And when I saw that, I was just like, well, that was right after I just fought my 10-round fight against an undefeated opponent. I had stepped up a little bit, and I was like, you know what? That's the fight I'm going to ask for. It just kind of clicked in my head, and I just felt like it was perfect. I felt like it was outside of the box, and Heyman and Lewis, they agreed, and they gave me the fight that I wanted, and I was very thankful for that, and so we took it from there, and I'm just very thankful they're putting it on such a big event, and it's just really tuning up to be something really special. So I'm thankful.
Yeah, you've come a long way. You went from prospect of the year to pay-per-view undercard to now being the co-featured event on one of the biggest cards in years with Benavidez and Plant. You just sort of gave us your thoughts on what that means to you, but have to imagine that that's incredibly exciting to be on the stage that you just described.
Yeah, I couldn't be happier. It's something, it's really surreal just coming from, being young and dreaming about moments like this and seeing fights at the MGM Grand and seeing fights on Showtime and just to be the co-main on a card this big, it's going to be I'm sure a full house on the night, and it really is a dream come true. I'm so thankful for just being able to be here. And these are the moments that we looked forward to as a kid, and they weren't guaranteed. They weren't guaranteed that they would ever come and that we'd ever make it to this point. So it's definitely nothing to take for granted, the fact that we're here now and that we're able to live this dream out.
You don't normally see young rising guys face each other before they get a world title shot. What made you do this? Is it just because he's got the ranking and the logical next step?
I just felt like, to me, the reason why I wanted this fight, and it was important to me to get this fight, is because I felt like I feel like I'm more underestimated coming into this level, and I really wanted to prove who the top young fighter is on the PBC roster. And the fact that he had that high ranking made it make perfect sense for me. I felt like I could come in. I feel like he's gotten a lot of praise, a lot of, and rightfully so. A lot of people think very highly of him. And I want to come in and put on the type of performance that puts the rest of the division on notice. And I felt like this was the one to do it. I like the fact that we're similar in age. He's a little bit further along than me, like I said, in the rankings. So it was just, I feel like the perfect step in the right direction for me. It comes down to our boxing skills. It's not, he doesn't have a crazy amount more experience than me, even though he does have a slight bit more experience than me. It's not substantial. I feel like it's going to come down to who the better fighter is. Yeah. And that's what I thought made sense about it. And that's what Al and, Lewis thought made sense about it. And that's why they made the fight happen. We're both young. So you don't see like you said, you don't see young fighters fight before the title most of the time. But I feel like that's sometimes in boxing, that's what it needs to go outside the box and put on these matchups. You hear the fans talk a lot about wanting to see these types of fights and not getting them often. And since me and him are in the same stable, why not make a fight like this happen? We're both so young that whatever happens, we still have long careers ahead of us.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you brought up your last fight, which was against Kevin Salgado, who was unbeaten, your first 10-rounder, and you met that challenge. You almost shut him out. What did that victory mean for you in your career?
It was really a great experience for me. I feel like being the first time that I went 10 rounds, I mentioned the fact that I went out and trained afterward, and actually the reason was because I just wanted to see how much I had in the tank after that fight. I really wanted to prove myself that I had more than enough to go as many rounds as I needed to go. Being that it was my first 10-rounder, you just have it in your mind like, okay, we're going to go out and see how I feel for 10 rounds and things like that. And at the end of the fight, I had so much energy that I went out and ran several miles and went and did a strength session with my strength and conditioning coach, and just really wanted to empty myself and see how far I could go. And I had a lot more in the tank, and that gave me a ton of confidence going forward that I'm more than ready to go the distance in any fight. And so that was definitely a great experience for me. I know that I could have done a lot better. I know that I could have done a lot more, but that was just the first time, kind of stepping up in competition a little bit more. I feel like I'm on a whole nother level since then, and that's always the goal in between fights, to come to another level than what I left off in the last fight, and that's why I stay in the gym.
So I think it's safe to say that this is another step up in opposition against another unbeaten guy in Ramos.
Yep.
What do you think's made him successful?
I think that I'm very impressed with his ring IQ and the way that he stays calm in all different. You see it in all of his fights. He's had, like I said, a good amount of experience. I think he's been in a few different, maybe 4 10-round fights. They haven't all gone to distance, but he's had a lot of different styles of opponents. And no matter what they bring, he seems to stay really relaxed and calm and just continue to work through it. Great ring IQ. He makes good adjustments. I think that has a lot to do with it. He's got good stamina. He's able to keep a good pace. I think that all those things are he's also diverse. He can fight going forward. He can fight backing up. And that's really important in the sport as well, to be able to do more than just one thing. And I think that that's a lot of what has made him successful so far.
What do you think of his performance against Luke Santa Maria? It was probably his toughest fight to date.
I thought it was a good performance. I thought that Luke Santa Maria fought a good fight. He's a tough guy, and, he really, came with something to prove that night. And I think that he made Ramos earn it. And I thought it was a good performance overall. Definitely a tough fight. And again, another fight that he handled well and, responded to adversity and didn't, get off his game. He stayed true to his game plan, and he was able to get the job done. So I thought overall it was a good performance.
Now, Jesus has only had a few fights at 154 since he moved up from welter. You've had fights between 154 and 160. Do you feel you have a size or strength advantage over him?
Definitely strength, 100%. I don't know what he weighs or comes into the ring weighing. I don't know about size, but as far as my strength goes, I'm definitely stronger than him. And I know that confidently. As far as size, I'm not sure. Because I don't know what he walks around at, and I haven't been face to face with him yet. So I don't know about size, but I know that I have a above average physical strength, for sure. So I definitely have a lot of belief in my strength in this matchup.
Tell us what other advantages you feel you have over him that will allow you to have your hand raised after the fight.
I think that people are going to see the difference in, like I said, he's got a good boxing mind. He's been doing this a long time, just like I have. We both grew up in the sport. But I think that everybody's going to see that there's a large difference in the type of athlete that I am in comparison to him. I think that that's going to show up early and often throughout the entire fight. So I think that, among other things, that's the main thing that I can say right now, is just that I feel like I'm a different level of athlete, and I feel like that we're going to see that, and it's going to show up, and that I'm going to be able to exploit that.
What are you expecting from him? Like, what styles is he going to bring? Is he going to box? Is he going to apply pressure? Maybe a combination of both?
Well, I will say I don't know what I expect from him. We're going to make adjustments. We know that he can do more than just one thing. I can't really say what he thinks that he's going to come in and do against me. All I know is I'm going to be prepared for every single circumstance. Every single circumstance I'm preparing for. I've had so much time to prepare for him because I knew that we were, that there was a chance we were fighting before he knew. And I've been preparing for a long, long time. I'm studying day and night, and I'm going to be ready for any scenario. I can't predict what he's going to be able to, what he's coming in thinking that he's going to do, but I'll be ready for it.
The 154-pound division is one of the hottest in the sport today.
Yeah.
You've got Tim Tszyu taking on Tony Harrison next month. Give us your thoughts on that bout.
Yeah, that's a good fight. That's a really good fight. I think that the boxing ability is in favor of Tony Harrison. I think that he has the potential to come out there and outbox Tim Tszyu, even on as a replacement. But I also think that Tim Tszyu has the power advantage, and Tony Harrison has been knocked out before. So I think that if Tony Harrison stays focused for the 12 rounds and goes out there and sticks to a game plan, is able to stay defensively sound and doesn't get caught with anything, I think that he's going to take the win. I think if Tim Tszyu is able to, apply pressure and break him down a little bit and land the right shot, I think that he could possibly get him out of there.
Now, the winner of that fight will likely challenge the undisputed champion, Jermell Charlo, next. How do you feel at this stage each of them would do against Charlo?
Well, Tony Harrison showed that he's got every bit of the ability to go in there and get the win against Charlo. He has the capability of it, and it slipped away from him in his last fight with him. So I would be interested in seeing that fight again. I think that I give the same prediction in that fight. I think Charlo's gotten even better, though, also than the last time that they fought. So he's improved also, I think. So it's hard to say, but Harrison definitely has the opportunity, if he gets this win, to go in there and maybe get the win against Charlo in their third fight. Tim Tszyu, I think that fight will look a lot like the Castano fight, and Charlo proved that he's able to handle pressure and with his boxing ability, and I think that he's just, going to be a little bit maybe too skillful. But it'll be interesting to see a fresh opponent in there against Charlo, because he's pretty much cleared out the division except for a couple of guys. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that fight, and if Tim can change anything up and bring something that Charlo hasn't seen yet.
Now, what about you? If you win on March 25th, what do you believe should be next?
Yeah, if I win on March 25th, then I believe that, I think I heard something about Fundora fighting Mendoza. The winner of that fight, I'd be willing to take on next. Anybody else as well. I also like the idea of fighting Brian Castano. I haven't heard anything about him since the loss to Charlo. I'm sure he's taken some time off, but if Fundora ends up doing something else after this next fight, or Mendoza, if he gets the win, then I'd be more than willing to fight Brian Mendoza too. And I think that'd be a great fight for me, and I'd be excited about that matchup.
Yeah, it would be a great fight. So is your fight against Jesus Ramos on March 25th. Joey, thanks again for taking the time out to talk to us. We are as excited as you are about this showdown. We look forward to it, and we can't wait to have you back on again.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Knockout artist Subriel Matias wants to prove he's one of the top dogs of the super lightweight division, but Jeremias Ponce looks to stay undefeated. Matias versus Ponce on Showtime.
This Saturday, February 25th, PBC returns on Showtime with a triple header beginning at 9 p.m. Eastern Time from the Armory in Minneapolis. In the main event, the hard-hitting Subriel Matias takes on another slugger in the undefeated Jeremias Ponce for the vacant IBF 140-pound world title. But before we get into the breakdown, Mike, first let's take a look at the essentials.
Okay, here we go. Once again, Matias, 18-1 with 18 knockouts. It's a pretty good knockout ratio. Ponce, 30-0, 20 knockouts. Matias is 4-1 in his last 5 with 4 knockouts. Ponce 5-0 with 4. Last fight for Matias was a 9th round stoppage of Petros Ananyan, the guy who had outpointed him earlier. Ponce, Chico Degadze. Ponce stopped him in 3. April of last year. Matias 95% knockout ratio. Ponce 67. Matias only 85 rounds because he keeps knocking everybody out. Ponce 150 rounds. Matias 30 years old. Ponce 26. They both turned pro in 2015. They both fight from an orthodox stance. Matias will be at a height disadvantage if that's what it is. He's 5'8". Ponce is 5'11". Matias has a 71.5-inch reach. The best that we could find on the reach for Ponce was 71. I'm not 100% convinced that's accurate because he looks really long and lanky, but we'll see when they're face to face. Matias is from Fajardo, Puerto Rico, and Mr. Ponce is from Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Yeah, all the makings of a great fight. Give us your thoughts on Subriel Matias. I mean, a lot of folks believe he is the dark horse of the division.
Well, I know I use this word a lot, but if it applies to anybody, it applies to Matias. The guy's just an absolute beast. The fact he stopped all of his opponents is evidence of that, I think. He had that slip up against Ananyan. He was doing well in that fight, but he kind of faded down the stretch and he got outpointed. Made me wonder whether what happened during camp, maybe he didn't train like he was supposed to, but he avenged the loss by knocking out Ananyan in just a war in his last fight. I think he's a champion waiting to happen, but we won't know until he beats the next level opponents, which is sort of where Ponce comes in.
What can you tell us about Ponce?
I like him a lot from what I've seen. Again, he's a tall, lanky boxer, puncher who also fights aggressively, which should produce an entertaining fight on Saturday. I don't see how it couldn't be entertaining. He's not reckless. He's not like a reckless brawler. He applies intelligent pressure, but he does apply pressure. And while he doesn't have the concussive power of Matias, he does have power. He uses his length by throwing like long whipping shots that hurt his opponents. You'll see what I mean when you see the fight. It's really interesting the way he delivers his shots. And I like the way he targets the body. He likes to go to the body. He's still a bit of a mystery. This is his U.S. debut, but again, I like what I see.
Yeah, I was wondering, with all the hype surrounding Matias, is Ponce being overlooked, or do you think it's just, we haven't seen much of him?
Well, he probably is being overlooked. I think the odds are around 4-1 in Matias' favor. So I remember thinking when I first saw that, I go, it sounds a little too wide to me, to be honest with you. Yeah. Ponce's good. And we had him, had him on the last podcast. He doesn't come across as a guy who, will be like a deer in headlights or anything like that when they step into the ring. I think you'll see that too. He knows what he's doing and he comes to fight. This guy's a real fighter.
So how do you expect the fight to play out?
I think it could end up being like a battle of attrition, maybe even like in a toe-to-toe war. The winner could be the guy who can absorb the most punishment. Again, I think Ponce is good, but I think Matias might be a little bit better. And Matias probably has a little bit more power. I think he's going to wear Ponce down with his power shots and either stop him late or win a clear decision. But I just want to add this. Ponce's best chance will be to pound Matias's body, which could wear him down. I just don't see that happening, but I think it's a possibility.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, you nailed it by saying it's a war of attrition, because this fight's definitely going to be a war. I mean, Matias is lethal in there. He's got good size and strength. And on the inside, he has a James Toney-like composure and relaxation that allows the punches to flow in bunches, and he can find those openings in a phone booth. Ponce reminds me a bit of Ricardo Mayorga, but more of a traditional boxer. He packs a lot of steam in his punches. He's busy. He hits hard. There's no way this fight is going the distance. I think back about what Stephen Breadman Edwards always says, which is that, the harder hitter in a fight is the person who can take the other's punches better. And I think that's going to be the case here. I think it's going to come down to who can take the other person's punch better. I think that Ponce is going to be very dangerous. As you said, from the outside, he throws those whipping punches. And if he's able to do that against Matias, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a stoppage win here. But I think Matias's punches are a little more short, a little more compact, and I expect him to do better work on the inside. I like Matias as well by late round stoppage. Now, we've got welterweight action in the co-feature with the return of Jamal Shango James. James takes on veteran Alberto Palmetta in a 10-round battle. Mike, it's been a while since we've seen James.
Yeah, it has. I've always been a fan of James. He's also a tall, lanky, really talented guy. That said, he suffered a really bad loss in his last fight, 9th round knockout against Rajab Bouhairie in October 2021. He hasn't fought since then. We won't know, what that fight took out of him, if anything, physically, mentally, or otherwise. You just never know how you're going to bounce back from a fight like that. I'm guessing we'll see a good version of James, but we'll see.
Give us your thoughts on his opponent, Alberto Palmetta.
He's good. He fought in the 2016 Olympics for Argentina, which gives you an idea about his, mastery of the fundamentals. He's a good fundamental fighter. He has really tight technique. He's accurate with his punches. He's aggressive, but not too aggressive. He's got power. He's got poise. I think he's a serious threat to James, although I see James as a step up in opposition for him if James is on, if he's on.
Yeah, it's sort of a crossroads fight. I mean, a lot at stake for each guy. Who do you think would be an ideal next opponent for the winner?
we talk about all the best welterweights all the time. I think the winner becomes a legitimate opponent for pretty much anyone. I'm not saying the winner of this is going to be targeted necessarily, but I think a top guy looking for opponent might want to look for the winner of this fight. I hope, for example, Cody Crowley gets his title shot if he beats Abel Ramos on the Benavidez Plant card. If he doesn't get that right away, for whatever reason, maybe he could fight the winner. Maybe Bouhairie, who remains a contender. I thought of Yordenis Ugas. I'm not sure exactly where he's headed. Anyway, I see the winner facing a contender at some level.
Yeah, lots of names out there for the winner. And who will be the winner, in your opinion?
That depends on which James shows up. If he's at or near his best, this could be like a tactical fight to some degree. And I'm not sure who the better boxer is. If James isn't 100%, maybe he gets outboxed, not worked by Palmetta. I'm going to guess that Palmetta is going to eke out a close decision in a fight that can go either way.
Interesting. I like it. I'm going with James by decision. I think he's refreshed, rejuvenated, and I think a slightly better boxer. So I got James UD10. We'll see how that plays out. Now, the TV opener features what I wouldn't call a crossroads bout, but an extremely important one. Junior welterweights vying to move into world title contention will face off. Elvis Rodriguez taking on Joseph Adorno. Rodriguez is such an interesting fighter. Assess his career for us to date.
Well, I like Rodriguez. He's a good all-around fighter. He's got ability. He's got power. He's got 12 knockouts and 13 victories. He's a southpaw, which can present problems for opponents. And he's trained by Freddie Roach, which is obviously a good thing. So he has a lot going for him. Now, he did hit his own speed bump in May 2021 when he was outpointed by Kenneth Sims. He was a pretty good fighter. All that told me, though, was that he was still developing and that he needed to do more work, which I sort of knew anyway. He just didn't have his hand raised in that fight. And he did rebound to knock out Juan Pablo Romero and Juan Jose Velasco. So he's moving in the right direction. So a lot of talent, still developing, but not far away from where he wants to be.
What about Adorno? What's your take on him?
Adorno has ability, and he's always fun to watch. He had a rough patch between 2020 and last year when he went 0-1-2 in 3 fights. He lost a wide decision to Michel Rivera. I remember thinking at that point, wow, it looks like he might have hit his ceiling. Well, he's won his last 3 fights since then, including a close decision over a pretty good opponent in Hugo Alberto Roldan in his last fight. That said, I think this is absolutely a huge fight for Adorno. If he wins, he might still have a future as an elite fighter. If he loses again, I think that he might have hit his ceiling earlier. So really, really important fight for Adorno.
What about Rodriguez? How important is this fight for him?
It's important. I think he has the ingredients of maybe even a potential star, and he's close to becoming a contender. He can't afford another setback, though, which that would send him back toward the back of the line again. And I'm not sure he can rebound again from that. Let's put it this way. It'll be that much harder to rebound if he loses another fight. So it's also big for him, too. I'm not sure it's quite as do or die as it is for Adorno, but it's a big fight.
Yeah, and obviously Adorno's going to be looked to play the role of spoiler. What makes him so dangerous?
Adorno comes to win. He has ability, but I've always liked his fighting spirit. When a capable fighter is determined, really determined to win, and that's how Adorno fights, he's difficult to beat. So I think he's a good fighter, but he's also a really tough, determined guy. He doesn't want to lose, and you're going to have to work to get that done.
So who are you picking?
I think an improving Rodriguez methodically breaks down Adorno and either stops him later or wins a clear decision.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Rodriguez by decision here. Just too much at stake for him. I think he'll be focused, hungry, and he's going to take the fight to Adorno, slowly break him down on his way to a clear win. Let's bring in our next guest, an unbeaten welterweight contender who takes on Abel Ramos Saturday, March 25th at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, live on SHOWTIME Pay-Per-View. Cody Crowley. Cody, another big fight. Abel Ramos, March 25th on SHOWTIME Pay-Per-View at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. How excited are you to be on this card?
I'm pumped up, guys. Since I moved to Vegas 9 years ago now to chase this dream of becoming a world champion, as soon as I landed, I knew that this is where I'll be fighting. I was living at the Hooters Hotel right across the street from it for probably my first month or two in Vegas. And I used to wake up every day looking across at that MGM Garden, and I knew I'd be fighting there. And, you know, blink 9 years later, and here we are. And it gets to be on Showtime Pay-Per-View, one of the best networks, be seen all around the world. And I think it's one of the best fights of the year. You know, the main event has been a fight in the works for 5 years or so. So to be able to perform on this platform with the other amazing fighters, it's going to be fireworks all night.
Yeah, it's a great one of the best matchups in years. It's one of the best cards, I think, in years as well. How did this fight with Abel Ramos come about?
You know what? To be honest, I really have no idea. They've been PBC's been throwing names at me for a while. After my last fight, you know, I took some time off, and then my dad passed away in the summertime, and I was back home helping out with my family. And then I got a call in August to get back training, and I have a fight coming up. And I've had 4, 5, 6 dates fall through. And then finally here we are now with this one. They offered me Abel Ramos. I'm not going to turn down anybody, and it's for a WBC eliminator. So this is really the perfect gift for me, perfect opportunity, and I'm doing everything I can to make sure I seize the moment and capitalize on it. After this fight, it's time for a world title. You know, I've been in the ring with over 30 world champions. I've paid my dues. I've climbed the rankings. I've took a long, hard road to get here. So after this fight, no politics can get in the way. No shadiness, just a world title fight. So I'm extremely excited.
Cody, we're going to get into what comes after this, but first, give us your thoughts on Ramos. Is this guy, how much of a threat is this guy to you?
You know what? I take everybody as a threat. Ever since 4-round fights, I've been training 12 rounds like a world title fight. Never take anybody lightly. I believe I'm the favorite going into this fight, but I always fight like an underdog. You guys know that my fights, I come to fight, bring the fight. But this time I'm lucky. I got a guy who's willing to bring the fight to me. A guy who's aggressive, a guy who, you know, he's got decent pop on his punches. He's been in the ring with some well-known guys. He's earned his position. So I'm more so excited that I got a guy who's going to hopefully pull some greatness out of Cody Crowley. You know, I'm only as good as my dancing partners that are in there with me. So I'm hoping for a rock'em sock'em robot fight. I'd fight this dude in a telephone booth if it was my preference, but it looks like we'll be fighting in a 22-foot ring. So I predict me to walk this man down, to cut the ring off, and to keep his back on the ropes the whole entire night.
Looking forward to seeing that. You mentioned that you didn't have the best camp prior to your decision win over Josecito Lopez last year. Has this camp been different? Has it been better?
You know what? It's like I said, I've been in camp since August. You know, training, spending my own money, going in the hole, not, you know, getting right ready for a fight and then not happening. So it's the same type of thing as the fight before, but this is boxing. You know, when are you going to have a perfect training camp? When are you going to, you know your fight 12 weeks out and everything go as planned? It doesn't. And that's what happens in the ring. Things don't go as planned, and you need to adapt and adjust. And I feel like that's one of my best qualities, is I'm able to adapt and adjust in environments where most people can't, and they can't survive. But I always end up thriving in those types of environments. The more chaos that comes, the more my back's up against the wall, the stronger I become. So this fight, I've had lots of time. The only thing that I would like to be different was not to have all the postponements, not to have the fight keep getting pushed back. You know, it was supposed to actually be February 25th not too long ago, and then it got pushed back a whole entire another month. So that can weigh a lot on a fighter, but I'm just ready for an opportunity, and I don't really care about anything else. I'm just ready to fight.
Now, this fight has special meaning to you. You're dedicating it to your father who took his own life last June. Can you, whatever you can share as far as what that experience has been like for you?
You know what? It's been absolute hell. Losing somebody who's that close to you, someone who I had some internal issues with, who I think a lot of fathers and sons have battles, and they don't open up very much. They don't communicate as well as they should. But at the end of the day, the dad's always trying to push the kid to be the best version of himself that he can be. And that's what my dad did. And I love him, and I'm happy he's out of pain. He suffered from depression. He suffered from childhood issues, things that he never got over. And that's something that I'm in the middle of doing as well. I'm starting to open up and seek help and talk more about my own mental issues, my own mental health, my own thoughts and stories that get created in my head that make me do certain actions. It happens to all of us. And to this fight right now, I'm dedicating it fully to my father. Without him, I wouldn't be here. And I want to show other people that, you can suffer from being down. You can have mental health issues. You can be at rock bottom, and you can still come out of it and be better off. And, the fight's not over. The fight's never over for a fighter. And I'm just going to continue to keep fighting. And that's one of the things my dad has shown me. Never stop fighting.
Now you, this has, spurred you to be proactive in helping yourself and helping others. What can you tell us about your work as a WBC Cares Wellness Ambassador?
Yeah, I spread a lot about mental health. Like you guys might possibly know about my own story, in 2019, I was pretty much on my deathbed. Autoimmune conditions, lupus, fatty liver disease, kidney issues, you name it, neurological issues. And that caused a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. And I basically had to heal myself from the ground up, which took a lot of internal work. So I have some experience with that, and I know what other people are going through, and I try and help as much as I can, whether it's, helping them out, teaching them some breath work, some meditation, other ways to transmute that anger and energy that might be stuck inside of them. A lot of the times nowadays, keeping up with society, we don't have time to, show our true feelings, especially as a fighter. What are fighters training to do? They're training to shield themselves up. They're training that no matter what, they don't let anyone see their true emotions, how they feel. Well, that's great in a fight and everything, but when the stuff doesn't get cleared out, it'll eventually manifest as a physical illness or a mental illness. So I'm a very big advocate for trying to help people with that. And that's one of the things I'm doing for this fight in my dad's name. Is I've teamed up with WBC Cares with a suicide awareness group in Canada, and we're doing a big raffle to raise awareness for mental health, $55K for Team 55, where we're selling raffle tickets for people to win a trip to Las Vegas, 2 plane tickets, hotel rooms, floor tickets to my fight, and set them up really, really nice. And all that money gets donated in my father's name to the suicide awareness group, Team 55. And what that group does is all the money that they collect, people who are going through a difficult time, they reach out to this group, and this group will offer help by paying for different therapies, different healing modalities, and steer people in a direction where they can resolve some of those issues and carry on with life and be happy again. So I'm very excited for this little trinity we have going on with the WBC, myself, and the Team 55 back in Canada in my hometown. So I feel like this fight is not only, benefiting my career, but it's also doing what my real purpose here is, which is helping people, which is, lending a hand and having an open heart.
Cody, has it been difficult to maintain focus on boxing given what transpired? This being your first camp without your father?
Definitely. I've had a lot of changes happen in my life the last couple of years. And having my father taken was probably the lowest I got hit. And a lot of depression, sadness comes in, a lot of questions. What's the point of this? Why are we here? What's the purpose? But that's where I'm also blessed with the platform I have and the ability to fight. I have an outlet where I can wake up every day and push out whatever anger, whatever sadness, whatever excitement, motivation, all the full spectrum of emotions. And I get to channel that into something and show it and perform it on fight night, on a stage where everyone can witness. Everyone will be able to see exactly what that fighter has been through by what the outcome is. They're going to see a very, very hungry fighter in there. They're going to see a very smart fighter. And they're going to see a fighter that won't back down away from anything, because when you've lost everything, you don't have anything else to lose. And that's a very scary position for someone to be in when you're up against somebody who literally has nothing to lose.
Does this fight being a WBC title eliminator give you any extra motivation?
It does. Like I was saying before, when I beat Kudratillo, who was the number 1 IBF contender, and I got screwed right out of those rankings, coming in at 14 after that, getting moved backwards, it really showed me that there's a lot of politics in this game, and you have to jump through some hoops, which I don't believe is fair. That definitely plays with people's emotions and their mental games. But this fight, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I win this fight and I get guaranteed the mandatory position. So nobody can come and take anything away from me. So that's what I'm fighting for.
It's just listening to you, it sounds to me like you're looking forward to this style of fight, almost as if you prefer a firefight, a war. Almost.
I never ever want to go in the ring and not have a fight. The whole purpose of boxing for me was always this adrenaline that took over, where I don't feel punches. I don't know who's watching. I just go into this total free space of a war. It feels like real life war to me. That's how I treat all my sparring sessions. Everyone who boxes me knows that. So when I get under the lights, that's all I want. I want to be remembered as a legend. I want to be remembered like, Arturo Gatti, having these absolute wars. I want the people to remember me for the heart that I left in that ring, where I wasn't doing things to look pretty. I wasn't trying to showboat. I was literally fighting for my life and fighting to put food on my table. I'm a real fighter. So that's what I want to show.
Now looking forward, if we could, to what might come next. So if you win and Errol Spence is tied up, what would your plan be? Would you take a tune-up? Would you search for the next best opponent? What's the thought process there?
I would love to call out Spence right after. I'd love to fight Spence. The fact that he randomly put a tweet out mentioning my name, talking smack about me about a month and a half ago just shows that I'm on his radar. People like He tweeted out randomly, Cody Crowley reminds me of a worse Samuel Vasquez, I believe his name was. And I don't really know what he was trying to do with that, but the fact that he tweeted my name out when I haven't said anything, I don't interact with you, but he was trying to plant some sort of seed. So it wouldn't surprise me if he jumped on that fight and he took that fight, thinking, it'd be a great tune-up fight for him. But I have a feeling that he's done with it. He wants to go up to 154. If he fights Thurman after 54, he's not coming back down. I like to look at things from a bird eye view, and you just had Ennis with the title eliminator. You have my fight, another title eliminator. You have Ortiz Stanionis, another title eliminator. People at the top see the big picture, and they know that there's going to be a whole new sleeve of world champions at 147 this year. So I'm just going by the picture that's being painted in front of me. So I believe that I'll be fighting for the WBC, somebody in the top 10 in the summertime, and then it'll be unification time come the fall.
It's interesting. So your Dennis Ugas sits right above you in the WBC rankings. Sounds like it could be him.
Could be. We will see.
Yes, we will.
For sure. Now, there are a lot of great fights on March 25th. You brought up the main event. Give us your thoughts on Plant Benavidez. What do you see happening there?
That's a fight I'm very, very excited for. I don't really watch too many fights, to be honest. But Caleb is somebody that I've been in the gym with and I've been following for a long time. And to see the hard times that he's went through, and to position himself like he has, he's a true fighter in and outside of the ring. So I got nothing but respect for him, and I hope that he is victorious come March 25th. But he does have, a big plate in front of him. This fight with Benavidez it started in the gym with us about 5 years ago, and they started going at it in the gym. It just took this long for the fight to happen. But I personally think it's going to be fireworks, and Caleb Plant will be victorious on March 25th.
Man, we can't wait for that fight, and it just looks like there's so many great fights that are set to take place this year. Last question: how do you see your 2023 playing out?
Yeah, my 2023, like I was saying, is I'm winning March 25th. Then I will be fighting for the WBC title in the summertime and a unification bout or a first defense at the end of the year. With everything that's been going on ever since COVID started in 2020, boxing has just been all over the place. And, I've only got the opportunity to fight once a year for the last 3 years. While being told I'm fighting and training like I'm fighting. So I want to get paid for the work and sacrifice and blood, sweat, and tears that I'm putting in. I would love to fight 3 to 4 times a year. Every single quarter, I would be ready to fight. So I think that I'd be a very, very good world champion that will stay very busy and create exciting fights once I get in that position. So 2023, like I was saying, by the end of it, whether a first defense or a unification, and same thing, 2024, I want 4 more fights.
Well, it all begins on March 25th. Cody, thanks again for taking the time out to speak to us. We wish you all the best against Abel Ramos, and we're looking forward to what should be a great show.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. And real quick on here, if anybody would like to donate money towards the fundraiser in my father's name, or buy a ticket to win a free trip to Las Vegas for the fight on March 25th, plane ticket, hotel rooms, and fight tickets, please text or call 705-927-3265. One more time, 705-927-3265. I appreciate any donation, any like, any share, any follow, any sort of participation is very much appreciated.
Awesome. Thanks again, Cody. Much appreciated.
Knockout artist Subriel Matias wants to prove he's one of the top dogs of the super lightweight division, but Jeremias Ponce looks to stay undefeated. Matias versus Ponce on Showtime.
It's time for Mike and I to go toe-to-toe. This week we are listing our 5 greatest performances in PBC history. Of course, we'll go in ascending order. So, Mike, as usual, the floor is yours.
Okay, first I just want to say this was actually kind of fun. I didn't really know how fun it would be, but it was fun to sort of reminisce, go through all the fights over the life of PBC. Second thing is, as I'm doing it, for me, it kind of evolved into more of my favorite performances as opposed to the best performances. But I just kind of went with where my heart took me, I guess. And I landed on, for number 5, I landed on Manny Pacquiao and Keith Thurman, July 20th, 2019. So I didn't give Pacquiao much of a chance in this fight. I know Thurman was still in the process of rebounding from injuries, but I thought if Thurman, even at 75%, would be able to beat a 40-year-old Pacquiao, well, one of the greatest fighters of his or any era put together one last great performance, which is always a cool thing to see. He set the, obviously it was at Thurman's expense, but I've always admired Pacquiao. He set the tone, early by putting Thurman down in the first round, and he hung on to win a split decision and a major, welterweight title. I was just in awe of his ability to pull that off at that late stage of his career. And it turned out it was his last hurrah. He lost his belt to Yordenis Ugas in his next fight, and then he retired. So I really miss Pacquiao. I was there when he stopped Lelo Ledwaba back in 2001, which was kind of his coming out. And it just all went by so fast.
Yeah, it did. And, that truly was only a truly great, elite, crafty fighter could have done what Pacquiao did that night. I mean, it was a veteran performance from a very, very intelligent, still explosive fighter. I was blown away at how he did it. The first round knockout, building up the early lead, withstanding Thurman's charge, hurting him with that body shot late. Which I believe, ultimately won the fight for him, slowed Thurman down enough for Pacquiao to win some rounds. Like, that was truly a great, great performance. My number 5 is Danny Garcia versus Robert Guerrero, January 23rd, 2016 at Staples Center. The vacant WBC welterweight title on the line. Now, this fight might not stand out to some folk, but let me give y'all some background, because like you, I mean, it sort of did evolve into my favorite performances, and usually with something that sort of stood out or caught me by surprise. In this fight, Guerrero, a 4-division titleist, it seemed like he was losing a little something on his fastball. He had those tough fights back-to-back against Keith Thurman where he lost the unanimous decision, and then Aaron Martinez where he won a split decision. I don't know if it was the Staples crowd and the love he got or what, but, Guerrero, the Guerrero who showed up that night was the best version I ever saw at 147. Garcia was trying to become a 2-division champ, and this fight was a lot tougher than it looked on paper. Garcia got off to a slow start, took a couple rounds to get going, which is usually the case with veteran elite fighters. But once he did, he put on a show. I mean, it was just an impressive performance where he displayed a variety of skills inside, outside, boxing, slugging, counterpunching, shoe shining at times. Guerrero gave it a bit of a go late, but he was simply outclassed by a tremendous fighter in his prime, Danny Garcia, who won a unanimous decision.
I love that choice because I just have such admiration for both of those guys. I've always described Garcia as a winner kind of guy who could just find a way to win fights. Matter of fact, he was on the cover of The Ring when I was editor of The Ring magazine, and that was the headline, "The Winner." That's what I thought about him. That was a good performance. And Robert and I just go way back. I think people forget how good Robert was at the lower weights. He was far from a natural 147 pounder. It was like way above his natural weight. He was so good at the lower weights, but he was still good at 47, which is explains how he was able to give a fighter as good as Garcia a fight at that weight. So yeah, great performance by Garcia, and it's just a great fight.
Yeah, let's go on to number 4. My number 4 being Stephen Fulton versus Danny Roman. Roman is a fighter I truly respect, one of the best counterpunchers of this era, in my opinion, and really one could make the case that he should have still had his titles when he took on Fulton last June at the Armory in Minneapolis. Fulton was coming off that grueling win over Brandon Figueroa, and it didn't get any easier against Roman. But on that night, to me, Fulton looked like the best fighter in the world. The boxing, the counterpunches, the defense, the footwork, the movement. He clinically broke Roman down. And if it was a 15-rounder, he might have gotten the stoppage. And, that's how he fought. I mean, that's how the great fought. Like I'm thinking of Pernell Whitaker, for instance. Like if Pernell Whitaker fought in the 15-round era, he probably would have had a lot more stoppages. And I feel like Fulton is a similar fighter, and that might have been the case that night. But anyway, Fulton won a clear decision and established himself as a pound-for-pounder.
Very good choice. And I think that's more of a truly dominating performance. I mean, that's not like necessarily, I guess it is one of your favorites, but it's also just a dominating performance. I thought that was a close. I favored Fulton, but I thought it was pretty close to a 50-50 fight. That's how much respect I had for Roman going into that fight. I just couldn't imagine anybody dominating him that way. And then watching it unfold, Fulton doing what he did to Roman, I'm just going, I didn't think this was possible. So tremendous performance from Fulton. I had a lot of respect from him going in. I had a lot more going out.
Yeah. What you got for number 4?
So this really is going to smack of a favorite, but I just love this fight so much. I just can't talk about it enough. Sebastian Fundora, Erickson Lubin, April 9, 2022. Just love this performance by Fundora. I didn't have a lot of confidence. As you know, I didn't have a lot of confidence in Fundora for a long time. I was one of those who just thought this guy's just a physical freak. Tough guy, but a physical freak. But his performance in this fight sort of changed my mind. I think it might have changed a lot of minds. Remember, Lubin is a terrific offensive fighter. He was hot going into that fight. I thought for sure he was on his way to winning a world title. I thought he was just a really steep trajectory. And when he got up from a knockdown in the second round to force Fundora to take a knee in round 7, I thought, he's going to take this. He's going to win this fight, and it's going to be another important step for him toward a world title. Well, Fundora had other ideas. He survived what was really a harrowing moment. Went back to work, and he ended up stopping Lubin, beating up Lubin. I mean, look, you go back and look at what his face looked like after the fight. Ended up stopping him in the 9th round. Breathtaking fight. I thought it was a breathtaking performance.
It really was, and it was, it's elevated Fundora to that level where he's at today. It was a brilliant fight. And yeah, Lubin was so hot going into that. People forget about that. I mean, he was on a really good run and worked his way back up, and that was the only obstacle to a title shot. Credit to both those guys and what they did that night. Let's go to number 3. I'll kick this one off as well. Mine took place December 10th, 2016 in Los Angeles. Jamal Charlo versus Julian Williams. 2 unbeaten fighters in their prime, 2 top-tier talents, 2 rivals. Charlo, of course, held the 154-pound strap, and both these guys had their moments in the fight. In fact, Julian Williams had a lot of them. Yes, in the first round, Charlo scored a knockdown off the jab, but Williams came back and showed some really high-level boxing. That is until Charlo unleashed that picture-perfect shot. I mean, deflecting a 1-2, 2 shots with his right glove and using that same hand to deliver a right uppercut that dropped Williams all in one motion. It was insane. Pure boxing skill captured in that one moment. Charlo got the big knockout and the accolades, but, both fighters went on to do more great things.
Yeah, that was a really good performance, given how good Julian Williams, is. And Julian Williams, it was after that fight that he scored that upset, right?
Became the defeated Jared Hurd and became unified at 154.
Yeah, exactly. So we knew he was good, but then he sort of really proved it when he did what he did to Hurd, and then Charlo did what he did to Williams. So yeah, great performance. Maybe the best of Charlo's career.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Who do you got?
Well, we'll stick with the Charlo theme. I have Jermell Charlo versus Brian Castaño 2. May 14th, 2022. You see, you're going way back in time. Mine are more recent. I like Charlo's performance in this fight because of how their first fight went. particularly because of the juxtaposition. That was the first one was a back and forth war that I thought was justifiably ended up as a draw. You just couldn't separate the two, which made the rematch so compelling. Well, as I've said many times on and off the podcast, you don't want to fight Charlo a second time. He made whatever adjustments he felt he needed to make and showed who the better fighter was by virtue of his ability and just sheer will. He's kind of guy because if he really wants to, could sort of bend the world to his will. Outboxing, outworking, and ultimately stopping a really tough customer in Castaño. I thought that was Jermell Charlo at his best, and Charlo at his best is as good as pretty much anyone.
Yeah, that was such a brilliant performance. He's had a few of them. I think about the Lubin performance as well. But that one, truly, I mean, that night, he was on his game. Everything, boxing, brawling, you name it, he did it all. And he saved it for, that historical moment. Let's go to number 2. What's your pick?
So my number 2 is Errol Spence Jr. versus Shawn Porter, September 28, 2019. So this certainly wasn't Spence's most dominating performance, but I think you can argue that it was his best. First, Porter at his best was a really good, really physically strong, swarming fighter who could take anybody to hell and back. And I think he was at his absolute best in this fight, both physically and in terms of his mental preparation. Now, he and Spence just went to war, Spence fighting with guile and Porter fighting, with the ferocity of a fighter who's making his last stand in boxing. What made this Spence's best performance, in my opinion, is that he had to overcome some serious adversity to have his hand raised, relying as much on his determination as his ability. I think more in this fight maybe than any other fight. And he came through in the clutch on top of everything else. With the fight seemingly up in the air, he put Porter down, in the 11th round as if to say, this is mine. You're not taking this. And I thought he won. It was a close fight, but I thought he won a clear decision, even though officially it was a split decision. Anyway, Spence showed me all the facets of his game that night, all the reasons that he's one of the very best fighters in the world.
Yeah, I remember after that fight, I was like, this guy's just hard to beat. I mean, how do you beat him? Do you outbox him? You cannot box him, cannot brawl him. How can you defeat Errol Spence? And it's interesting because my number 2 involves him as well. It occurred on May 27, 2017, when Errol took on Kell Brook for Brook's IBF welterweight belt. Brook at the time had one loss when he moved up to middleweight and fought Gennady Golovkin. So he was unbeaten at 147. And I know a lot of people think, well, maybe he was damaged coming off the Golovkin fight. I really didn't think so. In fact, that fight was stopped as soon as he started getting hit. Folks will point to the eye socket thing, but, Errol cracked the other eye socket, unless we forget it wouldn't be the last time he did that. Anyway, Brook looked great, that night. Again, he was undefeated at 147, but Spence was so unfazed by the moment, fighting overseas in Brook's hometown of Sheffield, England, in front of 27,000 screaming fans, and he was composed. He let the jab open everything up, and he disarmed Brook, wore him down, and then he closed the show like a champion, stopping him in the 11th round. A star was born that night, and he might be boxing's longest reigning champion. He's certainly one of them right now.
Yeah, that's a good choice. I thought that Brook stepping up to fight Golovkin was like a mission impossible. Anyway, it just wasn't a good matchup. And right. I think people forget that how good Brook was at his best, and it wasn't that long before he fought Spence. He was like a borderline pound for pound guy. He was actually in some pound for pound lists. He's a really good fighter, and for Spence to go to his backyard and do what he did to him was really, really special. It's like his coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you just go? You went at number 2, right? We both had the same number 2, so it's time for number 1. I'll kick this one off. My number 1 took place Halloween night at the Alamo Dome. Gervonta Tank Davis taking on future Hall of Famer and 4-division champion Leo Santa Cruz in a 130-pound tussle. This was in 2020 during the pandemic. Still 10,000 people showed up. To see the young pound for pounder versus the modern Mexican great. This had all the makings of a classic, and it was for 5+ rounds. I mean, Leo Santa Cruz showed why he is a great fighter that night. He was on his game. And Gervonta Davis, on the other hand, showed why he is special. The way he broke Santa Cruz down, working to the body, and then in the 6th just began unloading big shots. He basically cornered Santa Cruz and then finished him with a left uppercut One of the best left uppercuts I've ever seen to put Santa Cruz down and out. The shot went viral and just continued to add to the mystique and star power of one of boxing's biggest stars in Gervonta Tank Davis.
Yeah, that's a good call. That was originally on my list. So it was my last cut. And the only reason that I didn't include it on my list is because I thought going in that Davis had a significant physical advantage, a bigger, stronger guy. So that's the only reason. But in terms of just the domination against a guy, like you said, will probably end up in the Hall of Fame, is just mind-boggling. And that knockout, obviously that was the key element to everything. That's one of the most spectacular knockouts that I've ever seen. And you know how long I've been watching fights. It was just, that night was just absolutely unforgettable. And that performance was amazing.
He sure was. Who do you have for number one?
So number one for me is Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz 1, March 3rd, 2018. So this is similar in a way to Spence and Porter. It certainly wasn't Wilder's most dominating performance. I could go just pick all his amazing knockouts that he's had in his career. But I think we saw in this fight, against a guy nobody wanted to face, what makes Wilder the fighter that he is. The fight was close when Wilder put Ortiz down in the 5th round, and he seemed to be on his way to a victory during a strong 7th round when he got caught by a left hook that just absolutely rocked him with about 40 seconds to go. I remember thinking, as Ortiz was, just raining punches down on Wilder after the knockdown, trying to knock him out, I'm thinking, there's just no way Wilder's going to survive this. Well, he did survive it. He recovered fully, and then 3 rounds later in the 10th, he put Ortiz down twice and stopped him in an unforgettable fight. So we saw Wilder's power, which we see in pretty much all of his fights. We also saw what I thought was stark evidence of just an absolute true warrior, which we would later see in his fights with Tyson Fury. The guy might be the biggest puncher, to ever step into the ring. He's also one of the toughest, one of the most determined guys to ever step into the ring.
Yeah, those are incredible traits when you add them all together. That night is just one of my favorite, one of the most thrilling boxing nights that I've ever been fortunate enough to witness firsthand. It was just unbelievable. The tension, and then the knockdowns, and then the finale. What a night, and what a run Deontay Wilder went on. That was just unbelievable. Revived heavyweight boxing here in the United States, and that probably was his best performance. That's going to do it for this week's show. We want to thank Cody Crowley and Joey Spencer for joining us, and of course, we want to thank you all for listening. Be sure to check us out next week for more boxing talk right here on the PBC Podcast.